Okay, so today we will discuss rolling motion of objects on an incline. Again, we are interested in round objects like rings, discs, solid spheres, okay, objects like that. Now here, we will just restrict ourselves to one particular condition. Okay, so as these objects, whether they are rolling down the incline or rolling up the incline, they do so without slipping. Okay, so this is an assumption. So there is no slipping. Now, when we saw rolling of disk on the horizontal ground, okay, so we took a disk and then understood rolling motion. So if I take this disk, the condition uh, that is important to keep in mind is we paid attention to the point of contact. Okay, so the bottommost point which is touching the ground. If the center of mass of the disk had velocity VCM and then angular velocity omega, okay, so we saw mostly uniform pure rolling, but suppose these can change because of application of other forces. So then what will happen if I take this point of contact? Okay, so for the point of contact, let's call that as P. If there is no slipping as the disk rolls, the velocity of the point of contact should be zero. Okay, and we saw that this point of contact, if we look at its velocities, okay, so there are two velocities. One, it will have the center of mass velocity to the right anyway. Okay, so if you take that, it will have that center of mass velocity to the right because the object has it. And in addition to that, there is tangential velocity to the left. Okay, so this tangential velocity, how do you get that? You will have to pretend that you are an observer going with the, let's say you are an observer moving with the center of mass. Okay, so you're a tiny observer like stationed at the center, and then if you are going with the disk, okay, you would notice only rotational motion. Okay, so now when you notice only rotational motion and the particles on the periphery of the disk, they will have a tangential velocity which is equal to r omega. Okay, now when this tangential velocity matches the center of mass velocity, only then I can say that the point of contact has zero velocity with respect to the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, and not only that, they should point in opposite directions. So because they are vectors, sometimes in some of the problems, if they point in the same direction, okay, then I can't say that it is
Uh,
rolling without slipping. So for example, let me take the same case. I will just change the direction of the spin. Okay, maybe the tangential velocity of the points on the periphery is still r omega magnitude wise. I'll just change the direction in which the disk is rotating. So let me give you that example. So that's our disk. So imagine this here. Instead of a clockwise angular velocity, if this disk has counterclockwise angular velocity, and then the center of mass velocity is to the right, then what will happen if you are an observer moving with the center of mass? Okay, so you're going with the center of mass. Now all the particles on the periphery, they are moving in a circle in the counterclockwise sense. So if you look at the point that is touching the ground, because of the center of mass velocity, it will have that velocity in the forward direction to the right. Now, in addition to that, the tangential velocity is also to the right. You see? Now, these two get added. They will not cancel one another.
Yeah.
Okay, so now this is not pure rolling. It is clearly slipping forward. Okay. So this is a slipping. So what is the condition for a pure rolling? If you look at the point that is touching the ground, that should have velocity of center of mass and tangential velocity directed in opposite directions. That is number one. Number two, they should have the same magnitude. Okay, so then vectorially, the point that is touching the ground will end up having zero velocity. Okay, if it has zero velocity, then it's like nice rolling. Okay, now there's an interesting thing if you really look at it. Okay, this is really interesting thing. In pure rolling, if you look at the topmost point, the topmost point,
two times.
okay, so yeah, so it will have 2 times the velocity of center of mass. So that means, let's say if you are standing near a junction, okay, a nice BMW car is zooming at, let's say, 100 kilometers per hour. Imagine the wheel is rolling without slipping. Okay, you're paying attention to that wheel. The points which are at the topmost point of the wheel, they're actually zooming at 200 kilometers per hour.
Oh.
And the points that are touching the ground, they are almost at zero speed. The car is moving ahead. Okay, you understand? So the idea here is the points which are touching the ground, they are at rest only for a split second. Because they're anyway moving back, right? It's not that on the periphery there's always like the same point which is touching the ground and it stays at zero. That's not what is happening. It's like continuously you have several points coming and they're touching. I think if you learn more about this rigid body dynamics, it's actually very fascinating. You will try and understand that there are other ideas like instantaneous axis of rotation and then things like that. Okay, so let us not get into all that. We will just restrict it to simple stuff. But that's a very interesting thing to note. Okay, so the points that are touching the ground in pure rolling, they are instantaneously at rest. But if I take the topmost point, that's like cruising at much higher speed. Okay, so now what we do here is, if I look at this, okay, so if I look at this and then say, okay, now I'm saying, okay, now I accept that the tangential velocity and the center of mass velocity should be in opposite directions. And then the velocity of center of mass is r omega. Now, if I take a time derivative, I mean, if I imagine that there are other forces that will come up and then they try to accelerate, okay. But still, if the point of contact always tries to maintain this relation, okay, so if it tries to maintain this relation, that the velocity of center of mass, even though if it changes, then omega will accordingly change so that they match every time.
Yeah.
Then in that change, that means there is acceleration. Okay, so then we say that if this is true for a uniformly, let's say, pure rolling object, for an accelerated object, every time the acceleration of center of mass, I think, acceleration of center of mass must be equal to r is anyway fixed, and then rate of change of angular velocity is alpha. You get this beta? So this is
Yeah.
the thing that we need to maintain. And then here it's like saying, what is R alpha? R alpha is actually tangential acceleration of the points on the periphery. Now they should also point in opposite directions. Okay, so they should point in opposite directions. So for us, this second expression, the acceleration of center of mass is equal to R alpha. Alpha is the angular acceleration, is what is needed to understand this rolling of objects on an incline.
Mm.
Okay, so if that is clear, then things are actually in fact very easy. So let's look at this. Now you pick an object that you want to discuss. Let's say, what do you want this round object to be?
Let's go with this.
You still want it to be disk? Okay. So let's say that this is disk. So I'll just put some lines so that we know it is filled everywhere. Uniform. It's a uniform disk. Okay. And the mass of the disk is m, and radius is r. Okay. Now, before like solving this, we'll just pay attention. Our target is like, they may ask several things here. Okay. As the disk rolls down an incline, maybe some of the questions in NEET may be related to acceleration of a round object as it rolls down without slipping.
Mm.
Sometimes they may ask, okay, after it has come down a certain distance, what is the velocity? Okay. The slightly advanced question, I think, though rare, they might ask, okay, if it has to roll without slipping, friction is necessary here. So friction is necessary. There is a requirement for a certain degree of roughness. Okay, so you need certain friction coefficient. Okay, if it is below that value, it is not possible for the object to roll without slipping.
Mm.
Okay, so that I don't think they ask that question, but I think we will discuss that. Okay, now let's pretend that there is no friction. Suppose you keep this round object on the incline. If there is no friction, how do you think the object would move if there is no friction?
It'll slip.
It will slip. It will simply slide, right? And then if you look at if you are moving with the center of mass of the disk, okay, you don't see any rotations. So this is important. Okay, no friction means no rotation. This implies no rotation here. Okay, now to, let's say, get the acceleration of center of mass, obviously we'll have to work with free body diagrams. Free body diagrams are very, very important, right? Okay, now if you look at the forces acting on it, okay, so one force is mg straight down. Okay, so that's the gravitational force applied by the earth. And then up the incline, we have normal force. You're okay? Now we are saying if there is no friction, then it is going to slide down. So that means the points which are touching the ground will slip downwards. Now if friction is there, okay, so now we are saying now friction exists. So friction exists. What is the direction of the friction force?
Up the incline.
up the incline, right? So it always opposes relative motion. So now I have this friction force up the incline. Okay, right now we will just say that it is some friction. Okay, we will understand whether it will be, because you have these two flavors of friction forces, right? You have a static friction and then a kinetic
Kinetic.
friction. So we will just place F and then understand this. Now, those are the only three forces that are acting on the disk. That's it. Now, if you look at the center of mass, we are obviously interested. Let's say this center of mass, if I take this, it will move along this line. So there is this acceleration of center of mass that we are interested in. And the torque due to mg, see, about the center of mass axis. Okay, so when we look at about the center of mass axis, the force, the gravitational force mg is passing through that. Okay, so that means the moment arm is zero. When you do r cross f, r is zero. The normal force is also passing through it. Okay, so r is zero. So the torque due to mg is zero. Torque due to normal force is zero. So torque is provided by only friction force. Okay, so if you think about it, if somebody is like applying force in the upward direction, obviously the disk will rotate in the clockwise sense, right? So the disk is going to get angular acceleration in the clockwise sense. Okay, the center of mass will attain acceleration in the downward direction, and then alpha will be in the clockwise sense. Okay, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, now since we are interested in like what is happening down the incline, so that direction is important. So we will resolve our like one force which is not along that direction, which is mg. I think this is something that every student knows from Newton's laws of classes, right? So down the incline you have mg sine theta, and let's say perpendicular to the incline you have mg cos theta. So we can forget about that mg because we have resolved into two equivalent components. Now, after this, you write simple equations. Okay, so let's say two equations. One, down the incline. Maybe I'll do one thing. Let me back it up. Okay, so here to get the acceleration of center of mass and angular acceleration, we're just applying Newton's laws of motion. Okay, so one, we are applying Newton's second law for translation. And we are applying Newton's second law for rotation. Okay, so these are the only two things that you need to apply. Okay, now if I look at let's say down the incline, okay, I'll write side by side. Newton's second law for translation says the net force is equal to mass into acceleration of the object being analyzed. Now the counterpart of let's say in rotations, the counterpart of force is torque. So it says net torque. And then, okay, so the role of mass is played by moment of inertia. Instead of linear acceleration, we have angular acceleration. Okay. So when we apply Newton's second law for translation down the incline, if you look at the forces, I have mg sine theta acting in the downward direction, right? And friction is acting in the upward direction. So I simply have mg sine theta minus friction is equal to mass into acceleration of the center of mass. You're okay? Now, if I look at the Newton's second law for rotations, we're saying, okay, now you have to pretend that you're an observer moving with the center of mass, right? So you transported yourself as a tiny observer moving along with the center of mass. You would say that this disk is only rotating, okay? And the friction force is trying to cause that rotation. So about the center of mass axis, the torque is R into F. That is I alpha. Now, what is I for disk? You remember? I for disk?
MR square by 2.
Very good. MR square by 2. And then alpha. You're okay? Now, if you look at these two equations, okay, look at the unknowns. Okay, so we are after acceleration of center of mass. We are after angular acceleration. But there's another unknown, friction. Okay, so that means we need one more equation. Mathematically, if you want to solve these equations and then get the value of acceleration of center of mass and alpha, we need one more equation. Do you see that equation, or did we already look at it?
So n is equal to mg cos theta.
Okay, so let's put that, because perpendicular to the incline, the disk is not going anywhere. So that is another equation that we might need. Okay, so we'll put that down here. So perpendicular to the incline, it has no acceleration. So A is 0. So we can say normal balances. But again, now this is just giving the normal force. So it's not giving any of the other variables that we need. So we need one more equation, right? So did we see that equation earlier? Did we see? We saw that, right? What does that say it again?
Acceleration of center of mass is equal to R alpha.
Very good. Okay, so that's the connecting equation, right? So I have ACM is equal to R alpha. That's the connecting equation. So once I have that, I think my job is done. Okay, so now let's say here, if I substitute, I have M R square by 2. Alpha, I can write it as ACM by R. Okay. Now, once I do that, okay, look at it. I'll get friction in terms of acceleration of center of mass. MACM. Again, keep in mind, this is going to change from object to object. Okay, the numbers that you get here for disk, we are getting half because the moment of inertia is mr square by 2. Okay, if it is a solid sphere, then you would get a fraction of 2 by 5. If it is a ring, you will not get anything. You'll get just 1. Okay, so now that you have friction force in terms of acceleration of center of mass, I can substitute here. You see that? So if I substitute, what do I have? mg sine theta minus MACM by 2 is equal to MACM. Now I think this we can solve, right? So this is like 3 by 2. If MACM by 2 goes to the right hand side, that's 3 by 2. So mass disappears. It is 2/3 of g sine theta. You're okay?
Yeah.
Now we have acceleration. Okay, now once you have acceleration, from here you can get angular acceleration. Angular acceleration is simply you divide by r. So the angular acceleration is for the disk about center of mass axis is g sine theta by r. So there are plenty of things that we are able to answer at one shot. And then once we have this, we can get friction force. You have MACM, right? So, sorry, you have ACM, which is 2/3 g sine theta. I can substitute here. Okay, so I have m by 2 into 2/3 g sine theta. So then we have friction force as
m by 3 g sine theta.
very nice. Friction force is mg sine theta by 3. So you have this. Now, if you have this, you can answer that question. What is the minimum friction that we need? Okay, so maybe I'll try to solve it. Maybe I think I'll just put it here. Okay, so you know that maximum friction. Okay, so static friction, maximum friction, static is mu times normal, right? So that means our friction force should always be smaller than, I'll take static coefficient of friction, mu s times normal. Now what is, in this case, what do we have? We have mg sine theta by 3 is the friction force. And then that should be smaller than mu s. What is the normal force that we obtained? Mg cos theta. Okay. Now from here, if you see this inequality, m disappears, and then we simply get mu s as greater than or equal to tan theta by 3. So again, like I said, they rarely ask questions about this, but there is a chance. Okay, so you can just keep this in mind. So this is one. Okay, and then we have the other things. We have acceleration of center of mass. We have angular acceleration. We have friction force. Typically, these are the questions that they ask. Okay, so you're able to follow this? Yeah, okay. Now, let's take a look at this question. Okay, so you have the same inclined plane. We can still consider this to be our disk. This is a disk. Imagine they're starting from the same height, let's say. Okay, so maybe, I don't know, this is some 60 centimeters, or maybe I think we'll take 2 meters, suppose. They're starting from the same height. They start from rest. Now this disk has a mass of 10 kg. Okay, and then radius is 50 centimeters. And then this disk has a mass of 5 kg. Radius is 50 centimeters. The question is, which will come down, which disk will come down first? Let's call this as A and this as B. Which disk comes down first?
The one with more mass comes down first.
The one with
more mass.
Okay, you're saying the one with more mass. So that means disk A will come down first, right? Okay. Now, how do you find, let's say, suppose you are asked to find the acceleration. What do you need? Sorry, you're, what, you're asked to find the time, right? You're asked to find the time. So what do you need? You need the distance, the displacement. Okay. So the displacement will be given to you. Okay. So in both cases, what do you need to find the time if you know the displacement?
Acceleration.
Acceleration. Now for the disk, what is the acceleration that we obtained?
2/3 g sin theta.
2/3 g sine theta. Now, does it depend on mass?
No,
So which disk will come down first?
both will come down first.
Yes,
Yeah,
both arrive at the same time. You understand that this question can be asked conceptually. Both arrive at the same time.
there was this one question which I did. That's why, like, it said that there was a solid cylinder and a solid sphere or something like that, and there, which comes down
First.
first with a graded velocity or something like that. So
We
in
will.
that it said, since sphere has more moment of inertia, it will come down with a greater velocity and faster or something like that. So
Yes, yes, yes. So we can also look at that. Here we are still looking at the disk, same object. Now imagine, okay, so if I do something like this, if I don't change the incline, but suppose if I increase the radius, would the answer change?
no.
No, because it is independent of mass and radius. That's very interesting. See, these things actually physics is fun only when we actually do experiments. Now look at this. I mean, if we are able to experiment with such things, it's so cool. I mean, if you take a huge disk, okay, and then a tiny disk, you keep them at the same, let's say, height, and then roll them down the same incline, they arrive at the same time. Okay.
But then you have to have a lot of, I mean, these are all ideal conditions, right? You have to
Yes,
like
yes, yes, yes.
ensure that.
I agree. These are ideal conditions, but not very difficult to replicate because it's
Hmm.
just ideal in the sense uh, these are like not very difficult. The reason is you're anyway looking at a rough situation.
Hmm.
You are taking some friction between the surfaces anyway, right? So without friction is very difficult to simulate, but with friction, not an issue.
Hmm.
Okay, so you can always have inclined, let's say, wooden plank, and then the discs or cylinders are have the same surface characteristics. So you can always place at the same height, and then uh, they'll come down. I think if you look at YouTube, I think you will find many professors showing you this demonstration. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do because that's one thing I seriously find myself lacking. The experimenting thing. I seriously, I don't know, kind of hate about myself. I should actually do it. But if you watch out YouTube, you watch out for a professor called Walter Levin.
Okay.
Okay, he's kind of on like YouTube. He's like kind of god of physics. Okay, he teaches. He has so much love for physics. Okay, matlab, I owe him a lot. I mean, I learned a lot from him. Okay, so you should watch his videos. I mean, he does a lot of. I mean, the way he teaches at MIT. The way he teaches is not like the way I teach here. I mean, I'm only dealing with conceptual ideas. But what he does is he not only does this, he actually shows experiments in the classroom. So like it's like way cool, like very interesting person. You should watch out Walter Levin sometimes.
Okay.
Professor Walter Levin is amazing. Okay. So here, okay. So like you were saying the velocity part, right? So suppose if we want to try and get the velocity. So again, let's try to keep it general here. Okay, so here again, we still have the same disk. Okay, so the same disk, mass is m, radius is r. We're saying center to center, we take some displacement. Okay, so center to center, some displacement. The angle of inclination is theta. Suppose this displacement is L. And then we want to find the velocity here. Okay, so sometimes they say it reaches the bottom and then the incline is given. So we are trying to find the velocity of center of mass. Now here, the initial velocity is 0 anyway, velocity of center of mass. The acceleration we obtained, okay, so the acceleration of center of mass is what? 2/3 g sin theta.
G sin theta.
Okay, now if you're only paying attention to the center of mass, it's just particle kinematics. Okay, so what we can do is we can just use this v square minus u square is equal to 2as. So velocity of center of mass is what we need, square. Initial velocity is anyway 0. Now the acceleration down the incline is 2/3 g sin theta. And then the displacement is L center to center. Then what do we get here? The velocity of center of mass is simply, if I look at this is square root of 4 g sin theta into L by 3. You get this? Now, one important thing here. We say that definitely there is friction force acting on it. Yeah. Okay, as the disk rolls down, there is friction acting on it. But there's one interesting thing. Okay, so even though friction is acting, friction does not apply any negative, friction does not do any negative work. Okay, the friction force, it does only positive work in this case. Frictional force does not cause any loss in energy. That is a very important thing to understand. It does not cause any loss in energy. So that means either you can use kinematic equations or you can just use the conservation of mechanical energy to get this velocity of center of mass. Okay, but I think since we have a rolling object, the calculation of kinetic energy is slightly involved. Okay, so before I go to that calculation of kinetic energy, I'll talk a little more about this idea that frictional force is there, but it is not causing any loss in energy. The reason is, if you think about the points that are touching the surface, the points of contact, okay, they are not slipping, right? So if you think about it, wherever the friction force is acting, points of contact do not slip.
I didn't hear what you said.
No. I think suddenly I lost connection. Okay, so this is what I was saying. The friction is there. Friction force is definitely there. You need that. Otherwise, the rolling is not possible. But the frictional force does not cause any loss in energy. The mechanical energy is not lost. The reason is the points of contact, they don't slip. Points of contact don't slip relative to ground. Do not slip with respect to ground. But that's where the friction force is acting. So that means there is no displacement in the direction of the friction. Translational wise, there is no displacement in the direction of friction along the incline. You see what I'm saying? So that is why the work done by friction is, yeah.
No, like, is it the same case in the previous things that we discussed as well?
Yeah. Previous case also in the horizontally, once it starts, but in the previous case, the idea is when it was slipping, then the friction does work, negative work. But on a horizontal ground, once the disc starts rolling without slipping, if you recall, the friction force stops acting.
Yeah.
Friction force itself stops acting. Okay, so here friction force is required on an inclined plane. But the good thing is it does not lead to any loss in energy. Okay. So this is something, the conservation of mechanical energy can be used, but I think the calculation of kinetic energy is slightly involved. I mean, it's not difficult, but you have to keep in mind, I will write a general theorem for how to calculate the kinetic energy. So the kinetic energy with respect to ground, okay, of a rolling object is made up of two things. Okay, so one, the kinetic energy of the center of mass plus kinetic energy about the center of mass. So you have to keep this in mind for rolling objects. Now, kinetic energy of center of mass is as good as half mv, 1 by 2 m vcm square. Now, kinetic energy about center of mass is this rotational kinetic energy. So this is we are saying, like I said, you're an observer moving with the center of the disk, and then you only see rotational energy, right? So this is rotational kinetic energy. So wherever you have mass, you will end up having moment of inertia. Wherever you have VCM, you will end up having omega. You see this? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Then for our case, okay, so for our case, what I can write is this is MVCM square. And then we know that VCM is R omega.
Yeah.
So I can substitute that here. So I is mr square by 2. And then omega is VCM by R whole square. Now, if you compute, this is the kinetic energy. For rolling objects, you should not say half mv square. You should say, okay, so this is the kinetic energy. How much we get here is 1/4 and 1 second. I think you will get 3 by 4 mvcm square. So that's the kinetic energy it will gain here. If the object has VCM, that is the kinetic energy it will have. Okay. For different objects, you can write the expression, make a list, and then maybe, yeah, that's not a bad idea to memorize. Okay, but if you think about, I mean, I would say you memorize this half mvcm square plus half I omega square. So this you can anyway quickly get. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't have to memorize everything. Yeah. Okay, so here what we are saying is for the disk case, the kinetic energy. So once it comes here, okay, so once it comes to this spot. So what I was saying is you can memorize, but I think what I suggest is you just memorize this way to calculate. The kinetic energy of the rolling object is kinetic energy of center of mass, which is half mvcm square, plus kinetic energy about center of mass, which is like rotational kinetic energy, which is half I omega square. So that way you will have a logical group to remember. Okay, so it becomes easier. Okay, so here we are saying that at this spot, okay, so in the beginning, the kinetic energy of the rolling object is 0. And then here, that is the initial kinetic energy. The final kinetic energy, once it attains velocity of center of mass, after rolling down a distance L, it is how much? 3 by 4 mvcm square. And then if you look at the height, the height, it actually comes down. If L, this distance is L, the height it comes down is L sine theta. So you can simply use mechanical energy conservation. You can say that the gravitational potential energy lost is the kinetic energy gained. So what is the gravitational potential energy lost? It is mgh. Height is L sine theta here. And then kinetic energy gained is this 3 by 4. Again, it is not half mv square, but it is 3/4 mvcm square. It is slightly greater. Now, if you take a look at the VCM, what do we get VCM as? It is square root of 4 by 3 and then g sine theta into L.
G sine theta L.
So we get exactly the same answer.
That's what we got earlier as well.
That's what we got earlier. So you understand, the mechanical energy is conserved here. Are you okay? So I think after the class, you can just change the object and then try all these things so that you will gain confidence in like how to solve such problems. Okay, so before we end the session, one last thing I will discuss. Suppose, okay, so our disk, if it is rolling up without slipping, okay, so here we are taking a case, disk rolls up without slipping. You can give some velocity to it and then there is sufficient friction so that it is not slipping. This is an interesting question. Now, can you identify the direction of friction force?
Downwards.
Okay, so let's say you are correct. Okay, well, I'm saying let's assume you are correct. Direction of friction force.
Okay.
If I assume that you are correct, because it is rolling without slipping, as it goes up, every time the velocity of center of mass, if it is upwards, if you take the point of contact, remember what we said, the velocity of center of mass and the tangential velocity should point in the opposite direction. So the tangent, because the tangential velocity should be in the opposite direction, the rotation required, angular velocity should be in the counterclockwise sense, so that we get tangential velocity downwards. You understand? You're okay here? So for the point of contact, if you take the point of contact, this velocity of center of mass should match the tangential velocity. So that means VCM should be R omega. You're with me so far? Now, as you said, if I take friction in the downward direction, what would happen if a friction, let's suppose if I say friction is acting in the downward direction. Okay, so if I say that, okay, friction acts in the downward direction, which velocity will go down? Velocity of center of mass will go down. You see that going down?
Okay, what you said.
Yeah. So what I was saying is, if I assume that the friction force is acting in the downward direction, the velocity of center of mass will go down. But if you see, the friction will provide counterclockwise angular acceleration. That is in the same direction as the angular acceleration. So that means angular velocity will increase. that means these two will no longer match because the left hand side is going down, the right hand side is going up.
Yeah.
So it will not be rolling without slipping, right? You understand?
Oh, okay.
So that
Yeah.
means this is wrong. So what should be the direction of friction?
Up.
Yes, friction points up.
I think this is kind of confusing. Like, how do you figure out though? Because like usually you just look at how it's moving and then the opposite direction.
The reason is because you'll have to match these two. The idea here is, I'll tell you what happens. If let's say
Friction points up, then that means again omega will increase. No.
yeah, omega will increase. VCM is also increasing, right? That's the trick. See, omega is increasing. VCM is also increasing.
But how friction is opposite to VCM? So
Friction is opposite to VCM. It is decreasing. But is friction alone acting there? Look, to get acceleration, is friction alone is acting?
some other force is acting.
What other forces acting? Very important force acting. Very important
Gravitational
force acting.
force.
Mg sin theta. What is the value of friction force? 2/3 mg sin theta. What is downwards? Mg sin theta. Which is greater?
So 2/3 mg sin theta.
So it is accelerating, right? So, I mean, if I take the downward case, okay, so if you take the downward case, when it is coming down, mg sin theta is acting downwards. Okay, the friction, okay, is acting upwards. That friction value is only 2/3 mg sin theta. So the net force is still in the downward direction. So the center of mass acceleration is there and angular acceleration is also there. So that is why the object will gain velocity of center of mass in the downward direction. If I take this point of contact, every time, let's say if I take that point of contact, P, every time down the incline, velocity of center of mass and up the incline, the tangential velocity, they match. This R omega will always match VCM. So when the object is rolling up the incline, you're with me so far? Ananya, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, so when the disk is rolling up, you want velocity of center of mass obviously upwards, even though it is decreasing. Okay, now why it is decreasing? You look at this, your g sin theta will be greater, mg sin theta will be greater than the friction force. Okay, so as the velocity of center of mass decreases, okay, I mean, every time you want VCM is equal to R omega. So if velocity of center of mass decreases, you want omega to decrease as well. So if friction is not pointing in the upward direction, because omega will be in the counterclockwise sense as the object moves up. If friction does not point upwards, you will not get an angular acceleration which is going to decrease omega. Because if friction points upwards, it will create a clockwise torque, then it will create a clockwise angular acceleration. Because the angular velocity is in the counterclockwise sense, it will go down. So the rolling without slipping criteria will be maintained.
Okay.
You understand this? So you can say the long story short, if the round objects are rolling, whether they are rolling down the incline or up the incline, what is the direction of the frictional force?
Upwards.
Upwards. Okay, so this is, I know, I mean, when students study this for the first time, it's very confusing. Why? It's because the object, the points which are touching the ground should not slip. So that is the idea.